Good morning, everyone, and a warm welcome to this morning coffee series. My name is Pavel Novák. I specialize in negotiation, mediation, and coaching and consulting. And today I have my business partner, Satu Ahlman, a CEO and founder of Saga Performance, with me. Because we are working with executive negotiators and we provide interesting data to them. And we just thought that this could be of interest to many other people, not just negotiators. So the topic of this morning's series is healthy habits to build resilience and to actually boost our performance. If you're watching this live, feel free to post your questions via chat. If you're watching the YouTube version, feel free to ask questions. We'll try and answer them. Good morning, Satu. Thanks for finding the time.
Morning, Pavel and everyone.
And off we start with the first question we asked you. One of the first questions was, how do I stay productive in this new format of online meetings, etc.? What would be your tips or recipe for maintaining productivity? Satu, off to you.
All right. Wow. Thank you for the introduction, Pavel, and my pleasure to be here and really warm welcome everyone. It is a big question. Times are not as they were before, and obviously a lot of us are struggling with stress, capacity, working from home, how to steer the daily life, and how do I remain calm and retain resilience and productivity at the same time. So I'm going to be talking broader about that. So hopefully during my talk, I will be answering this question and more. Let me just go to the presentation mode, and here we go. So recovery, productivity, and resilience, and these are topics that both me and Pavel work with, and what Saga Performance really does is we have a systems approach to human performance and human life. So we look into the factors that affect your productivity and performance on daily basis, everything from really the genetic blueprint that you have to the environment, the room that you're sitting in, or the work environment that you have. How do you sleep? How does nutrition affect your sleep, your behavior, your stress levels? How do you lead your stress? Are you reacting to stress or just managing stress? And what can you do in your everyday life, especially when times are tough, especially when there is a crisis at hand, when stress levels rise, how to stay on top of things in a sustainable manner, because we're not supposed to be in a state of stress for a long period of time. So going back to the initial question, Pavel, I think it was how to maintain productivity. Was it like that?
Absolutely. How can I stay productive in these?
Yeah. Start understanding the signals that your body is sending you, whether it is stress or enthusiasm about your work or motivation, and start leading your day. Start being on top of your things and planning and structuring and creating routines. I think routines is something we're going to be talking more about today. That is one of the keys.
Okay. So what does this ugly graph show us?
Exactly. We love data. There's a device, I can actually show it to you quickly. First beat, lifestyle assessment. This is what I work with and what we work with when we're assessing and testing high performers and negotiators, and anyone who's interested in understanding their body data and how you use your capacity in the best way possible. How do you recover? How do you stay productive? How do you handle stress? This graph specifically gives us an understanding on how you switch between nervous systems. We have the autonomic nervous system, which is split to parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest mode. And then we have the sympathetic, which is more about the stress in terms of fight, flight, freeze. You might have heard about it before. And what you see in the graph is red. There's a lot of red, and then there's some green. There's some blue as well. And I'm going to tell you about what the colors mean. It's quite obvious that red is stress. green is recovery. We have the full day, one day that is analyzed of one person's life. We see the black heart rate curve variating during the day. And of course, we want to aim at having as much as recovery also during the day as possible. So with this individual in question, we're unfortunately not seeing recovery during the day. The recovery starts only when the person has gone to sleep for a couple of hours. Then we start seeing this kind of switch to this parasympathetic nervous system, which gives us energy for the next day. So this is not the optimal state to be in. Unfortunately, we see more and more these kind of graphs during this pandemic, when people are working from home, feeling stressed, and they don't know what to do, how to steer and lead your stress. On the other hand, yeah, sorry, Pavel, go ahead.
Sorry, Satu, the question I noticed, there was red all the way until midnight.
Yeah.
And one of the participants asked, how can I get a good night's sleep? I guess you'll be talking about it, but I just noticed there is red all the way from 8 p.m. till pretty much midnight.
Yeah, indeed. And this is not what we want. We want ultimately that the person, when they go to sleep, when we go to sleep, that the recovery starts immediately. So what do you do during the day matters. What kind of breaks do you take during your workday matters a lot. And what do you do the last 1 or 2 hours before you go to bed matters a lot. I know that a lot of us work late, or we have the tendency to look into these screens, whether it's a tablet or phone or a computer or even TV screens. We do that in the evening. And maybe we do that for relaxation purposes, or we actually just keep on working. And that is a downside, and that will be seen in these kind of studies and measurements, because typically what your body is signaling then to you is to stay awake, not to produce melatonin, the sleep hormone. So these kind of blue lights, blue screens that we're staring at day in, day out, and especially in the evening, is blocking our melatonin production. And that's why part of the reason why we're seeing this kind of a graph.
Okay, so Czech Republic is currently in a lockdown. So there's news everywhere. And if you want to, you could look, see the latest evolution of the COVID-19 in the country and across Europe. So it's not only just not watching this kind of news, but it's not watching a blue screen in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Totally. So it is multiple reasons why a person feels stressed. It could be personal, it could be the world is in a crisis, it could be specific stress at work or at home, or it could just be that we're not creating routines that are healthy enough to support it. And probably it is a combination of all of this. But by understanding what these kind of things do to our system, we can start leading the stress. We're not supposed to take away all stress, because we do need these reds as well to keep us thriving. There's a purpose for us having stress and getting the cortisol, the stress hormone, up in the morning to wake us up and get us going. But we can't have a sustainable high performance if we're just on the red zone throughout the days.
A brilliant segue to the next question. How long can a stress last? I know there was another picture you were showing, a little bit of more green, but there was red as well.
Yeah.
So how long, 2 questions really, how long the stress can last or should last to be still healthy? And what would be some healthy habits when we look at the second graph?
Well, you can sort of train your stress resilience capacity. Top athletes, top executives also, they train their heart rate variability, which is an indicator of how capable are you in switching between those sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, so the stress and the rest zones. You can work on that through multiple ways, just by, first of all, understanding how you feel when you're stressed, breathing exercises, taking breaks, also high intensity training or cold thermogenesis, things that help your body to realize, okay, I need to switch. But then the question was, how long can I be in the state of stress? It varies from individual to individual. The issue is that it's sort of like a vicious cycle. When you get to this red stress mode, like here, and your heart rate is elevated throughout the day, and you don't have the energy to do exercise, which might be healthy for you, go out for a walk. So you're just like working more and putting more effort in, and it's actually giving you more stress. So how to break that? You need to start creating new, healthier habits. And this is sort of where we want to be. This is almost a too good to be true example. This person is really switching nicely between the stress and the rest modes throughout the day. And you can see that when the person goes to bed, I think it's around 11 there, the recovery starts almost immediately. The heart rate is down and it's stable and it stays down, and there's no red during the nighttime either.
A question, Satu. Could these two graphs, the one before with a lot of red and this one, be the same type of job?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, it is very individual how a person reflects and reacts to stress. So you could have the same work and the same tasks, even the same environment, but one person, due to maybe other reasons in life, is just reacting to the work and the life at hand in a very different way. So training, now I'm talking about physical training, can also help there. You can see that this person, for instance, has a training session in the middle of the day. I'm not saying that everyone has to be a marathon runner or doing high intensity sports every day, but physical training and outdoors, actually breathing fresh air, that is also a way to train your capacity and your resilience.
Perfect. Satu, the question starts coming.
Okay.
First question, do we know what are the jobs of these two people? Do you know in specific?
The both of them are working from the office, so right now from home, but mid-level management, I would say. Yeah, not to go into details to keep them anonymous.
And of course, the thing that you were showing enables you to really get your own personal graph. Yeah?
Yes, yes, indeed.
Which could kind of show the trend. There is a question about physical activity after the job, which is, you know, you finish 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. depending on where you work. Would you say physical activity after late afternoon is good for your system?
Depends on the activity and how intense it is. Sometimes if you would do, let's say, yoga, low intensity training, go for a jog outside, which is not like a sprint or sprint intervals, it's definitely could be very relaxing, and you would start recovering actually from the mental work that you've been doing throughout the day. But then again, it's individual. For me, for instance, I need to do my training in the morning because my sleep gets very easily affected if I train in the afternoon even, and not even talking about evening training. So I think what helps is to, for instance, through this kind of a test, you will start understanding how your body reacts. There are a lot of clients that we have that used to do late evening training that have now switched to during lunchtime or in the morning, just because they realized that, oh, my heart rate is actually staying high after the training throughout the first half of the night, just because of that.
So it might negatively impact your sleep.
Yes.
There is somebody answering, actually responding what you just said. You know, I'm performing physical activity before job, and it boosts my endorphins and a great start of the day, which leads me to another question that we got beforehand. How do I get my mornings more productive? There was one person who said, I have a slow start and I get going around lunchtime. What would be generally your recommendation to get the mornings to get done more in the morning?
Plan and create routines. That's the easy first answer. Then what does it mean really? Well, it varies from person to person, but a recommendation is to try to get sunlight first thing in the morning if possible, because that gives the brain, sunlight. So go out, take a couple of breaths or go for a walk. to get that breath, fresh air in, but also the vitamin D. So you need to signal to your body that this is the time now and the place to start waking up and to start activating both the physical and the mental side of you. Another thing maybe, which works for many, is that not to start reading emails or not to start looking into your phone or computer during the first hour or first half an hour after you wake up. So by doing that, you're signaling your brain that, okay, I'm first going to actually take control of my day, and then I'm going to let myself be influenced by everything else that is happening. So during that time, you could, for instance, do, if someone wants to do stretching or meditation, breathing exercise, journaling, just by focusing on writing what are the main tasks and goals for the day, anything that helps you to put yourself into the focus mode. Then, of course, some people like coffee, some like breakfast. That varies again. Depends on what do you need to your system. If you're going to do the workout, maybe you need to eat before or after. Yeah, multiple answers to that. But take control.
Well, you know, I have more questions. One is really about coffee and alcohol, evening, you know, in a reasonable amount, whether it affects. But maybe before we get there, could you kind of give us top 3 tips for more productive day that anybody can adopt?
I have some tips in general, actually, here, which are not 3, but more. But they are all linked to how to be more productive and resilient. So planning and structuring your day is one. Getting those breaks into your day. If you're sitting in front of the computer, like many of us are at the moment when we're not working from the offices, try to move each hour, at least standing up from your desk, if you don't have a standing desk. So go out, take a couple of breaths in, and then come back in. So it doesn't have to be a 30-minute break. It could be just 2 minutes or 5 minutes. Stick to the routines that you've planned and see how your body reacts to them. A key is to prioritize sleep. Make a plan for your sleep, and also not just the sleep, but the last 2 hours before, and make a plan for the first 2 hours or first hour after you're woken up. Choose your mindset every day, because you get to actually influence both your mind and your behavior and your stress levels by just signaling to yourself, this is okay, or this is going to be a good day. And breathing is one of the keys. I could talk for an hour. There are a lot of us who breathe either wrong, too much, or just never really considered the fact that breathing can be the key to switching between these stressy nervous system from parasympathetic to the sympathetic and vice versa. So yeah,
I know you wrote an article about it. We will send the link.
Yeah.
There is the breathing technique of the Navy's.
Yeah.
You mentioned 2 hours before sleep.
Yeah.
Should a glass of wine be in the 2 hour slot, or should that?
I think you already know the answer. Well, if you really want to optimize your recovery and sleep, no, there's no place for that. Then I'm not going to say that you should never do that. I think there's also a limit. If it's 1, yeah, your body might not even realize it. If it's 3, most likely it will. Age plays a bigger role there as well, and the hormones and the melatonin production and all that. But in general, if I could choose, I would say have that wine by lunch or in the afternoon rather than the last 2 hours, because last 2 hours are really crucial.
How about coffee?
That's
performance or not really?
Yeah, in the evening, well, depends on who you are. It's genetically proven that some have gene variants that that they process or what do you call it, detox the caffeine in a shorter amount of time, and some actually need 12 hours to get rid of the caffeine. So you need to know yourself how caffeine affects you. But the normal recommendation would be not to drink coffee after 3 if you don't want to risk it to mess up your system. But of course, used as a smart way of boosting performance, you could do that earlier during the day. absolutely.
Okay, perfect. So maybe time for more questions, because we've covered almost all of them that you sent us before. So over to you guys. What questions do you have that you would like Satu to answer? Maybe something that we mentioned you would like us to go more deeper or stay there a little bit longer.
Yeah, and you can either write, or you can even say, if you want to have a moment of putting your video on, I guess that's fine as well.
True. There is a question. First question, can you develop the stick to routine part? How do you stick to your routines?
Yeah, well, commitment and understanding. No, seriously, you need to understand what are your aims with the routines. So if we're talking about evening routines, for instance, switching off devices 2 hours before, make that plan and stick to the plan at least for a month to see what kind of results are you getting when it comes to your sleep quality and quantity and so on. Creating routines means that you're creating new habits, and it requires time. It requires repetition and also sort of feedback to yourself and self-coaching and analysis. And of course, trackers, wearables, devices can support you. The more you have objectivity combined with your subjective feelings on how routines work for you, the easier and the better likelihood it is that you're actually going to stick to them. So you're not just going based on feelings, but that's a good start as well. But developing routines means that you need to start listening to your body even more, and then committing to maybe 1 or 2 routines to start testing with. Don't start switching your life around during one day and then think that you're going to succeed with everything. That's going to be really a big cake to have.
Mm-hmm. And you're talking about tracking. I noticed the message that the German government has kind of approved subscription of some health apps, cell phone apps. So we are living in the era of too much information, but luckily there are also apps that help us kind of track progress. Now, what would be your advice for having a good recovery this weekend? It's Friday morning. Everybody has a full Friday ahead of them, like most people. Maybe stressful, maybe not. And then the weekend. What could be the good start that anybody can apply just today?
Also plan your weekends, and a general recommendation that if you have good healthy routines during the week, try to stay with them also during the weekend. So for instance, not to decide that during the week I go to bed at 10 and then suddenly during the weekend you are switching to I go to bed at 2, because that's not consistency. So plan your weekends so that you can get the best maximum amount of recovery out of them. So some sort of structure, even though it is much more freedom, might be good. Try to switch off and make the best out of being away from the computers, the devices. I think we all need more breaks than we even realize from the web, from the internet as well. Focus on things that boost your resilience, recovery, and also creativity. And I think just being more mindful of how your body is recovering during the weekend will also give you some information on how you could then plan your week ahead, which I tend to do on a Sunday, for instance.
Okay, there is a connected question to that, which is, how do you explain to others, during the day that you have this actually a time for yourself or a break or time for the exercise? It kind of reminds me of the question we got before: how do I leave the office in not too late, in time? You had a laugh and said, just stand up and leave. So generally speaking, how do you create that space for yourself when you are living in a certain company culture? You have your colleagues, you have your family, and it's a system.
Yeah. In a way, you have to be a little bit selfish, because when you're saying no to something or you're sticking to your own plan, you're actually saying a yes to something bigger, hopefully, which is an overall health, which will then eventually long-term be more sustainable and create more health and well-being for others around you as well. And also for the employer will get more out of you when you are managing your performance and leading your stress. How do you explain that you're taking breaks to someone? I would say that those breaks don't even have to be that visible. As I mentioned, it could be just a 1-minute break when you're looking outside the window and thinking instead of looking directly in the blue light and in your computer. Then if you have a lunch break, you could spend some part of the lunch break actually walking outside. So I would say, you don't need to feel that you're making a big deal out about it. But of course, by all means, share with, try to influence others in a positive way and say, okay, I've been doing this now for a month, taking breaks every half an hour and just looking outside the window, and it really works for me. Have you tested something like that? So you're boosting that kind of a culture, because I think there are more and more people who actually need more, well, breaks. And company cultures will need to adapt to that as well.
Yeah, I remember, just to build on that, I remember when we discussed you working with top athletes, and when they do the measurement, it's almost always working too hard or trying too hard rather than doing enough or having enough recovery.
Yeah, we see that with athletes and with corporate high performance, that people are putting so much effort into everything that they don't realize that it's not sustainable. And once you start actually steering the breaks and taking recovery during the day, you start seeing and feeling more productive, even more creative. Your mind and your memory is functioning in a better way. So it will pay off for sure. And the data shows that as well.
Okay, brilliant. We have no more questions at this point.
And we have, I think, 1 minute left.
I don't think we've answered them all. It's time to wrap up. We are starting these series because we really see in the current times that it is beneficial. So there is a next session in almost 2 weeks. The change is we will meet on Thursday, October the 5th. So it's not going to be a Friday morning, but it's going to be a Thursday morning coffee. And the topic will be about negotiating. So if I build on the last question, how do I explain to others? You can negotiate it. And we will cover the do's and don'ts of being effective when you want to achieve a change or when you want to achieve a deal. And I think everybody will be needing this more or less these days. Also, I just sent a link to a survey for your feedback. We really would like to build this as an interaction, which is kind of funny feeling when we see this being recorded and virtual. But we do care about your questions and what you would like us to cover. So in the feedback, if you could take 3 minutes to tell us what you appreciated, what we could do differently, and also what topics can we cover next time, it would be much welcome. Thank you, Satu, for your sharing and your wisdom.
You're welcome. I'm happy if I could give some ideas or inspiration for anyone for this day or the coming weeks. Have a great weekend ahead, and I'll see you next time as well then.